My name is Michael Martin. I am 36 years old, a captain in the United States Army, and I am a widower. 3 weeks ago, I buried the only woman I ever loved. Her name was Maria. She was 34, a veterinarian with the kindest hands and the warmest heart I've ever known. Cancer took her from me in 8 months, 8 months from diagnosis to goodbye. I held her hand until the very end, and when she closed her eyes for the last time, a part of me went with her. But this story is not about how I lost her. This story is about what happened after, about how her own family tried to steal everything we built together, and about the one final gift Maria left behind that none of us saw coming. I met Maria on a rainy afternoon in Savannah, Georgia. I was 27 years old, just back from my second deployment to Iraq. My head was full of noise I couldn't turn off. Nightmares, flashbacks, the constant feeling that I was still in a war zone, even though I was standing in the middle of a farmer's market surrounded by peaches and homemade jam. My buddy Kyle had dragged me there, said I needed fresh air and normal people. I thought he was out of his mind. But then I saw her. She was standing behind a small wooden booth, selling organic dog treats. A golden retriever sat next to her, tail wagging, wearing a little bandana that said, "Adopt me." She was laughing at something a customer said, throwing her head back, completely free. And I swear, for a moment, all the noise in my head just stopped. I walked over without thinking. I had no plan. I didn't even own a dog. But something pulled me toward her, like gravity. She looked up at me with these big brown eyes. Warm, curious. No judgment, even though I probably looked like a mess. "You look like you could use a friend," she said. "I'm Maria. And this handsome guy is Biscuit. He's looking for a home, if you're interested." I adopted Biscuit that afternoon. Not because I needed a dog, because I needed an excuse to see her again. Our first date was a week later. A small Italian restaurant near the water. I was nervous as hell. I had faced enemy fire, but sitting across from this woman made my palms sweat. She ordered spaghetti and got sauce on her chin within the first 5 minutes. She laughed at herself, didn't even try to hide it. That's when I knew. This was the one. Maria was a veterinarian. She ran a small clinic just outside the military base. But she wasn't in it for the money. Half her patients were pets belonging to military families who couldn't afford the fancy clinics in town. She charged them whatever they could pay. Sometimes nothing at all. "Why do you do it?" I asked her once. "You could make 3 times as much at a big practice." She shrugged. "These families give everything to this country. The least I can do is take care of their best friends while they're deployed. Besides, look at their faces when Sergeant Whiskers goes home healthy. That's worth more than any paycheck." That was Maria. All heart. No pretense. We got married 14 months after we met. Small ceremony on the beach at sunset. Just us. A chaplain. Biscuit as my best man. And 20 of our closest friends. Her family wasn't there. They disapproved from the start. The Colemans were old Savannah money. 4th-generation wealth built on cotton and real estate. Regina, Maria's mother, had made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough. At our first meeting, she looked at my uniform and wrinkled her nose like she smelled something rotten. "A soldier," she said, the word dripping with disdain. How patriotic. And what exactly is the long-term plan here? Military pensions aren't exactly generous. Maria squeezed my hand under the table. "We're happy, Mom. That's the plan." Regina smiled, that cold smile I would come to know so well. "Happiness doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart." Her father, Patrick, wasn't much better. He was a quiet man who hid behind his newspaper and let his wife do the talking. But I caught the looks he gave me. I wasn't from the right family. I didn't have the right connections. To the Colemans, I was a temporary inconvenience they assumed Maria would outgrow. She never did. Her sisters were carbon copies of their mother. Tiffany, the older one, worked in real estate and measured everyone's worth by their zip code. Gloria, the younger one, had married a hedge fund manager and never missed a chance to mention it. They treated Maria like the black sheep because she chose animals over assets, and they treated me like the stray she had dragged home. But Maria didn't care. She built a wall around our life and kept them on the outside. Our home became our fortress. A small craftsman house with a wraparound porch, a backyard big enough for Biscuit to run, and a kitchen where Maria would cook Sunday dinners while I pretended to help. For 9 years, we lived in that bubble. Happy. Complete. Then came the diagnosis. It was a Tuesday. Maria had been tired lately, losing weight she couldn't afford to lose. At first, she blamed it on stress. But I noticed things. The way she pushed food around her plate, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she fell asleep on the couch by 8 o'clock every night. I made her go to the doctor. She resisted at first. "I'm fine, Michael. Stop worrying." But I insisted. She came home pale as a ghost. I was in the kitchen making dinner. One look at her face and I knew. The spatula slipped from my hand. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The words didn't make sense. She was 34. She ran marathons. She ate more vegetables than anyone I knew. How could she be dying? I remember holding her that night. We didn't speak for hours. At some point, she whispered into my chest, "I'm not afraid of dying, Michael. I'm afraid of leaving you alone." The doctors gave her a year. She lasted 8 months. 8 months of chemo and hospital rooms. Her hair fell out first. Then her appetite. Then her strength. But never her spirit. Even in the worst days, she found reasons to smile. She would joke with the nurses. She would hold my hand and tell me stories about the life we were going to live when she got better. We both knew she wasn't going to get better, but we pretended anyway. In those final weeks, something shifted. She became obsessed with getting things in order. She spent hours with her laptop, making calls to people I didn't know, typing emails late into the night. I assumed she was closing down the clinic, saying goodbye to friends. I was too deep in my own grief to ask questions. I should have asked. I should have paid attention. But grief makes you blind. The funeral was on a Saturday. Military honors because she was a veteran's wife who had served our community in her own way. The flag was folded with precision and placed into my trembling hands. I don't remember the words the chaplain said. I just remember the weight of that flag, the weight of a life that was over. The next morning, I woke up in our empty bed and drove home from the hotel where I had spent the night because I couldn't face the silence of our house. That's when I saw the moving truck. For a moment, I thought I was at the wrong address. But no, there was our mailbox. There was our porch. And there was Regina Coleman, standing in my driveway, directing 2 men in gray uniforms who were carrying out our living room couch. I parked behind the truck and got out. My legs felt like concrete. Regina turned to look at me. She was dressed in black, but her eyes held no grief, only cold calculation. "Oh, good. You're here," she said, checking her watch. "We were hoping to finish before noon. You can take whatever personal items fit in your car. The rest stays." I couldn't process what I was hearing. "What are you doing? This is my home." She laughed, a short, sharp sound like breaking glass. "Your home?" "Sweetheart, this house has been in the Coleman family for 3 generations. It was Maria's inheritance, and now it returns to us." She gestured at the men, who had paused to watch our exchange. "Keep going. The bedroom furniture is next." I pushed past her and walked inside. The scene was worse than I imagined. Patrick was in the living room, pulling books off our shelves and sorting them into boxes marked Keep and Donate. Tiffany was in the kitchen, wrapping Maria's grandmother's china in newspaper. Gloria was taking photos off the walls, stacking them in piles. And then I saw it. On the mantel, where our wedding photo used to sit, there was an empty frame. The photo itself was in the trash can. My face torn out. Only Maria remained. Gloria saw me looking. She shrugged. "We're keeping the ones of Maria. You're not really part of the family history, are you?" The blood roared in my ears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw them all out. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching them dismantle 9 years of my life. Regina appeared beside me. Her perfume was suffocating, too sweet, like rotting flowers. "Don't make this difficult, Michael," she said quietly. "Maria is gone. There's no reason for you to hold on to things that belong to us. The house, the furniture, the clinic. These are Coleman assets. You were just the caretaker." Caretaker. The word hit me like a bullet. I managed to find my voice. "Maria left everything to me. We have a will." Regina smiled. That sweet, poisonous smile. "Oh, honey, wills can be contested. And the Colemans have been using the same lawyers for 50 years. You're a soldier living on a government salary. How long do you think you can afford to fight us in court?" She patted my cheek like I was a child. "Be smart. Walk away. Take your uniforms and your dog and move on. You're young. You'll find another wife, one more suited to your situation." I wanted to hit her. The urge was so strong my fist actually clenched. But I was still a soldier. And soldiers don't lose control. So instead, I turned around and walked out. I sat in my car for an hour, watching them carry out pieces of my life. Maria's reading chair, the coffee table we bought at a flea market, a box of Christmas decorations we had collected together, one ornament for every year of our marriage. Biscuit was in the back seat, whimpering. He knew something was wrong. I called every lawyer in Savannah that afternoon. Most wouldn't touch the case once they heard the Coleman name. The ones who had wanted retainers I couldn't afford. The Colemans had connections everywhere. City council, judges, country clubs where deals were made over bourbon and handshakes. By nightfall, I was out of options. I checked into a motel outside of town, Biscuit curled up on the bed beside me. I stared at the ceiling and wondered how everything had fallen apart so fast. "Maria," I whispered into the darkness. "What do I do?" No answer. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of highway traffic. I must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing I knew, my phone was ringing. The screen said 7:47 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Probably a scam call, but something made me swipe. "Mr. Martin?" A woman's voice. Professional. Calm. "My name is Charlotte Peaton. I was your wife's attorney. We need to meet. Today, if possible." I didn't know Maria had an attorney, at least not one separate from the family lawyers. "What is this about?" I asked. There was a pause. Then Charlotte Peaton said 5 words that changed everything. "Your wife left you instructions." 2 hours later, I sat in a small law office downtown. Charlotte Peaton was a black woman in her 50s, silver streaks in her hair, reading glasses perched on her nose. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of person you wanted in your corner. She slid a thick envelope across the desk. "Maria came to me 6 months ago, right after her diagnosis. She knew exactly what her family would try to do. So she took steps to protect you." I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. Maria's handwriting. Seeing those familiar loops and curves made my chest tighten. "Dear Michael," the letter began. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and my family has already started circling. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. I'm sorry I have to fight this battle from beyond the grave. But I couldn't leave without making sure you were protected." My hands were shaking. I kept reading. "The house is yours. I transferred the deed into your name 3 months ago. Mom and Dad don't know yet. They will find out soon enough. The clinic is yours too. I restructured it as a nonprofit last year, with you as the sole director. They cannot touch it. And there is a life insurance policy. $2 million. It's in a trust that Charlotte controls. My family cannot contest it. It's yours, free and clear. I know this is a lot to take in. But I need you to understand something, Michael. You were never a guest in my life. You were my life. Every moment with you was a gift, and I will not let anyone take what we built together. Charlotte has all the documents. She has my power of attorney even now. She knows what to do. Fight them, Michael. Not for revenge, not for anger. Fight them because what we had was real and true and worth protecting. I love you. I will always love you. And I will be watching over you every step of the way. Forever yours, Maria. I read the letter 3 times. By the end, I couldn't see the words through my tears. Charlotte waited patiently. When I finally looked up, she handed me a tissue. She thought of everything, Charlotte said. The deed transfer was recorded quietly. The nonprofit status was finalized last month. The insurance policy was set up years ago, but she increased it after the diagnosis. Every document is airtight. So, when Regina said they would contest the will, Charlotte allowed herself a small smile. They can try. They will fail. Maria made sure of it. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since the diagnosis, I felt something other than despair. Hope. 2 weeks later, the Colemans got served. I wasn't there to see their faces, but Charlotte described it in satisfying detail. A process server walked into Regina's weekly garden club meeting and handed her the papers in front of all her society friends. Cease and desist. Return of property. Notification of legal action. Regina called me that night. Her voice was ice. You think you can win this? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I said calmly, I think you're the one who miscalculated. Maria knew you better than you knew her, and she made sure you would never get what you wanted. Silence. Then the line went dead. The court date came 6 weeks later. I barely slept the night before. Charlotte called me at 6 in the morning. Wear your dress uniform, she said. Let them see who they're really dealing with. I put on my Army service uniform, the dark blue jacket, the gold buttons, the ribbons on my chest. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a grieving widower. I saw a soldier ready for battle. The Colemans showed up with 2 high-powered attorneys in Italian suits. Regina walked in like she owned the courtroom. She didn't even look at me. I showed up with Charlotte and a folder full of documents Maria had left behind. It wasn't even close. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s, with no patience for entitled families who thought money could buy justice. She reviewed the deed transfer. Valid. The non-profit restructuring. Legal. The life insurance trust. Untouchable. Every angle the Colemans tried, Charlotte blocked with paper. Maria had prepared months in advance. Their lawyers objected. Overruled. They requested continuances. Denied. At one point, Regina stood up. Your Honor, this man is not a Coleman. He has no right to— The judge cut her off. Ma'am, sit down. This is not a country club. This is my courtroom. By the end of the hearing, Regina's face was the color of ash. Patrick wouldn't meet my eyes. Tiffany kept checking her phone. Gloria was crying. The judge ruled in my favor. Full ownership of the house. Full control of the clinic. The Colemans were ordered to return every item within 72 hours and pay my legal fees. Outside on the courthouse steps, Regina caught up with me. This isn't over, she hissed. You're still nobody. Still the stray my daughter dragged home. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a sad, bitter woman who had lost her daughter and couldn't admit she had driven her away years ago. "Goodbye, Regina," I said, and I walked away. It was over. Or so I thought. 1 week after the ruling, an envelope arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $300,000 and a note in Regina's handwriting. "Let's put this unpleasantness behind us. Take the money, sell the house, disappear. We never have to see each other again." I stared at that check for a long time. $300,000. Enough to start over anywhere. Enough to walk away from the memories, the pain, the ghost of Maria that lingered in every room. But that money wasn't a peace offering. It was a bribe. Regina wasn't trying to make amends. She was trying to buy my silence, my dignity, my erasure from Maria's story. I walked to the kitchen sink. I took out a lighter I keep in the drawer for birthday candles, and I held the corner of that check to the flame. The paper caught slowly at first, then faster. I watched the numbers disappear. The signature turned to ash. $300,000 of Coleman guilt money, gone in 60 seconds. I swept the ashes into the same envelope the check came in. No note. I mailed it back to Regina the next morning. She never contacted me again. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. The grief didn't disappear, but it softened around the edges. I started sleeping through the night again. I started cooking in our kitchen again. I started living instead of just surviving. And I finally understood what Maria wanted me to do. The clinic had been closed since her death. I didn't know anything about running a veterinary practice. But I knew about service. I knew about taking care of people who needed it most. So I reopened it, not as a regular clinic, but as something new. The Maria Martin Memorial Animal Care Center, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free veterinary care to the pets of military families. The first few months were chaos. I was a soldier, not a businessman. I didn't know how to file nonprofit paperwork or manage a staff. But I learned. I learned because Maria believed I could. I hired 2 young vets fresh out of school who believed in the mission. Dr. James Chen had grown up in a military family. Dr. Amara Williams had lost her brother in Afghanistan. They worked long hours for modest pay because they believed in what we were building. The first patient was a German shepherd named Duke. He belonged to a staff sergeant about to deploy to Syria. Duke needed surgery for a tumor, and the sergeant couldn't afford it. He came in with tears in his eyes, convinced he would have to put his best friend down. We did the surgery for free. Duke made a full recovery. The sergeant deployed knowing his dog was safe. He sent us a photo from overseas, him in full gear, holding a printed picture of Duke. That photo still hangs on the wall. After Duke, word spread. The waiting room became more than a place for sick animals. It became a community. Military spouses sharing advice, soldiers reconnecting with their pets, veterans finding purpose by volunteering. One day, an elderly Vietnam veteran came in with a scruffy terrier. He was living alone, barely getting by. His dog Pepper needed dental work he couldn't afford. We took care of Pepper. We connected him with veteran services. We invited him to our Saturday volunteer breakfasts. He cried when he thanked me. "First time anyone's treated me like a human being in 20 years, he said. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a clinic anymore. This was Maria's legacy, alive and growing. Last month, I was cleaning out Maria's old desk at the center, moving some files around, and I found a hidden compartment in the bottom drawer. Inside was one more envelope. My hands knew what it was before my brain caught up. Another letter. "Dearest Michael," it began. "If you found this, then you did it. You won. You held the line. I knew you would. But winning the battle was never the real mission. The real mission starts now. You need to live, Michael. Not just exist. Live. Fall in love again if you can. Laugh again. Build something beautiful. Our house was a fortress we built to protect each other. But fortresses can become prisons if you're not careful. So I'm giving you a new mission, Captain. Turn our fortress into a lighthouse. Let it shine for others who are lost in the dark. I will always be with you. In the sunrise, in Biscuit's wagging tail, in every animal you help, every family you serve. You were my greatest adventure. Forever watching over you, Maria. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my wallet. I carry it with me everywhere now. A reminder, a compass. This morning, I woke up early. The Savannah sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I put on my running shoes and stepped out onto the porch. Biscuit was already waiting, tail wagging, ready for our morning run. The street was quiet, peaceful. A neighbor waved from her garden. A kid rode past on his bicycle, delivering newspapers the old-fashioned way. I looked back at our house, the house Maria and I built into a home, the house her family tried to steal, the house that stands strong and full of light. She was right. It's not a fortress anymore. It's a lighthouse. And every morning, when I lace up my shoes and step into the new day, I feel her beside me. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as a presence, warm and steady and eternal. The war is over. I won. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with love. The same love that Maria armed me with before she left. If you're out there fighting your own battle, know this. You are stronger than you think. And sometimes, the people who love us leave behind exactly what we need to survive. Before you go, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this story travels, and if Maria's love and strength touched your heart today, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose lighthouse you might become.